Welcome to the Explainer. You know, we hear all the time about these incredibly powerful AI agents, but there's been this one huge problem. How do we get them to actually talk to our apps? Well, today we're breaking down a brand new open source protocol that's doing just that. And trust me, it's a total game changer for making AI useful in the real world.
So let's really dive into this. The core issue is, well, kind of simple on the surface. We've got these brilliant AI agents that can think, reason, and plan out complex tasks. But how do we get them to actually use our tools and apps? There's been this massive gap between their brain power and, the real-world interfaces we work with every single day. That's the puzzle we're tackling today.
All right, let's call this what it is, the agent front-end gap. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like a disconnect between the agent's brain and the application's hands. The agent can be a genius, figuring out exactly what needs to be done. But for the longest time, it struggled to actually do it, to click the buttons, fill out the forms, or query the databases inside our apps. It's all thought and no action, and that's a huge problem.
So, to tackle this problem, developers are building something really cool called Agentic RAG. Now, what is that? Well, think of it like hiring a super smart research assistant. You ask it a question, and instead of just blindly searching Google, it stops and thinks. It asks itself, okay, for this specific query, what's the best tool in my toolkit? Should I check our private company database, or is this something I need to go out and search the whole web for? It's all about intelligently choosing the right tool for the job.
Okay, so if Agentic RAG is the goal, how do we actually build that bridge between the agent and all its different tools? Well, the answer comes in the form of a new framework, and it's called the Meta Controller Protocol, or MCP for short. Just think of it as a universal adapter. It's the one piece of tech that lets an agent discover, connect to, and use literally any tool you throw at it.
And what's really fascinating here is that MCP isn't working in a vacuum. It's actually part of a much bigger vision for how AI systems should communicate. As you can see, it's one of three key protocols. You've got AGUI, which is all about connecting agents to us, the users. Then there's A2A, which lets different agents talk to each other. And then the piece we're focused on today, MCP, which connects agents to their tools. When you put them all together, bam, you get a complete ecosystem for AI collaboration. Now, I want to be super clear. This is not just some abstract theoretical concept. MCP is a real, practical framework that you can use today. It's designed to play nicely with all the popular agent frameworks developers are already using. We're talking LangGraph, Llama Index, Crew AI, the whole gang. It's event-based, which means you get that awesome real-time streaming chat experience. And maybe most importantly, it fully supports human-in-the-loop collaboration. That means you're not just handing off a task. You can actually guide, correct, and work with the agent.
Okay, so enough with the theory, right? That all sounds great, but how does this stuff actually work in the real world? Let's get our hands dirty and walk through a practical example. We're going to see an MCP Powered Agentic RAG system do its thing live in action.
So here's what we're trying to build. The goal is simple on the surface, but it's actually incredibly powerful. We're going to create a smart search agent. If we ask it a question about a specific topic, say machine learning, it should know to search our private internal database of FAQs. But, and this is the clever part, if we ask it about anything else, like who won the World Series in 1998, it needs to be smart enough to realize that info isn't in the database and automatically switch over to a general web search. Now, to make this happen, we're going to bring in a little tech stack, a team of 3 awesome open source components. First, for scraping and searching the big wide web, we've got Firecrawl. For our internal specialized knowledge base, we're going to use Qdrant as our vector database. And finally, to act as our user interface, the window into this whole system, we'll use Cursor. It's going to be the MCP client that lets us talk to the agent.
All right, the stage is set. So what happens under the hood when a user like you or me actually asks this agent a question? Let's break down the step-by-step workflow.
And you know what's beautiful about this? It's incredibly elegant and simple. It really just breaks down into 4 key steps. First, you type in your question through the client. Second, that client pings the MCP server. Third, and this is the magic moment, the server intelligently analyzes your query and selects the perfect tool for the job. And finally, the output from that chosen tool is sent back to the client, which then generates your final answer. It's just a clean, logical, and super effective flow. Okay, for all the developers out there, this next part is for you, and it's probably the most important bit. You might be thinking, this sounds complicated to set up, but it's not. Adding a new tool for your agent to use is ridiculously easy. You only have to do 2 things. 1, You add a simple tool decorator right above your function in the code. And 2, you write a clear docstring. Just a little sentence explaining what your function does. That's literally it. The agent reads that little description and figures out all on its own when it should use your tool. It's that simple.
All right, now for the moment of truth. This is where the rubber meets the road. Let's put this agent to the test. We're going to throw 2 totally different queries at it and see if it's really as smart as we think. Can it actually pick the right tool for the job?
And look at that. It works. It absolutely nails it. When we ask it a specific, technical ML question, it correctly calls the vector DB tool and searches through our internal FAQs. Perfect. But then when we ask it a general knowledge question, something totally random, it instantly recognizes that the answer isn't in its little specialized database and, without missing a beat, switches over to the firecrawl tool to search the entire web. That's the intelligence we were talking about.
So this is obviously a really cool demo, but it's so much more than that. Being able to build systems like this is quickly becoming a non-negotiable, critical skill in the world of AI. So let's zoom out for a second and talk about why this matters for the bigger picture, and, frankly, for your career. There's a great quote from Avi Chawla over at Daily Dose of Data Science that just hits the nail on the head. He says, "At the end of the day, all businesses care about is impact." That's it. And he's 100% right. It's not about the fancy tech. It's about what the tech does. Does it cut costs? Does it boost revenue? Does it solve a genuine painful problem for someone? That is the bottom line.
And this is exactly why mastering concepts like MCP Powered Agents is so crucial. It helps you build what we call industry ML skills. These aren't just academic exercises. They are the practical, real-world abilities that companies are absolutely desperate to hire for right now. We're talking about building and scaling RAG applications, developing agentic systems, making models run efficiently on smaller devices, and building systems that respect user privacy. This is how you create that business impact we were just talking about.
Look, by finally bridging this gap between these super smart AI agents and our everyday applications, we are genuinely opening up a whole new frontier. This changes the game for human-agent collaboration. And it leaves us with one really, really exciting question to chew on. Now